Gem Rush, a game published by Victory Point Games, a game that can be played in competitive mode or also cooperatively and therefore in solitaire. You simply control all of the characters in play. The font of the title, as you may have noticed, forms an ambigram. It reads Gem Rush no matter the direction you look at it. The Illuminati designed it, I read somewhere. So in Gem Rush you will control dwarfs that will be digging tunnels and looking for precious stones under the earth. Right now what you see here is a game in progress. I was playing it with my 7-year-old daughter Amelia. Now she left temporarily to do some errands with mom, so I have the time now to film this segment of my video review, but I'm not at liberty of moving things around too much. We will continue the game after she comes back. Now, each player controls a dwarf that will be moving in the play area, and the play area is constructed gradually during gameplay by using cave tiles, which I will show you in a minute. We'll start actually by looking up the cards that you need to create new caves, to dig holes and to create new spaces. Each card, or should I say most cards, show 2 different stones, and when you play a card you can play it for one or the other. I could play this card for the obsidian or for the star tier or for both. So you have different combinations of cards. So the different gems are coded by shape and by color, which is very good, so you don't need to distinguish colors to be able to tell them apart. Also, some cards represent diamond dust, which are wild cards. They can replace any other type of gem. You will have a hand of cards during the game, and at the beginning of your turn, if you have more than 4 cards in your hand, you discard down to 4. Since the game can be played in 2 different ways, cooperative or competitive, I'm gonna start by telling you the things that apply to both modes, and then we'll talk about the differences. What I said so far applies to both modes. There will be a single cave tile in play at the beginning of the game. You simply draw one of these cards at the beginning of the game randomly, like I just did, totally random. I wasn't choosing one at all. You draw it randomly, you put it in the middle of the play area, you place all of the dwarfs in play on it, and you're good to go. Now these cards will show a number of exits that are coded with different sets and combinations of gems. In order to be able to exit from that exit when the outer edge of that exit is unexplored, you need to produce those gems. For example, if I have in my hand cards such as these ones, I can announce that as part of my movement, I will discard these 2 cards and I will build that exit here. In which case I will draw a card, I will place it there, choosing an orientation. I will move through it, and also I will score the number of victory points indicated there. In this case, for building a room on the other side of this exit, I scored 2 victory points. Moving across rooms that have already been built, of course, doesn't give you any victory points. In each round you have 3 movement points. That means you can move up to 3 rooms. So sometimes, and actually very often in the later game, you will be moving across rooms that already exist and then use your remaining movement points to build the rooms that are not there yet. And this is how your net of caves will expand over time. I believe that this game started with this one in play first, and then this is what we have been building so far. And this is really how you score victory points. You're trying to collect cards that will let you collect victory tokens by building rooms. There are a couple of other ways of collecting points, but that is definitely the main one. So, during your turn, you discard onto 4, you move up to 3 spaces, and as part of movement you will try to build in your rooms and expand your net. After that, you can either draw a card from this deck, which is an extremely inefficient way of replenishing your hand because you only get 1 card and you don't know what you get, or you can use the action of the area that you're in. Each area has a different action. And most of these actions will allow you to get cards in specific ways, in specific combinations. For example, here I could discard any card to dig for 2 cards that do not match any gems on the discarded card. I discard this one and now I can look through the deck for 2 cards as long as they don't have obsidian and star tier. So that gives me quite a bit of flexibility and I get 2 cards back in my hand. Yes, because the only way of getting cards quote-unquote automatically is to draw a single card, random one, instead of taking the action of the room that you're in. And then maybe from time to time you have to do it. You're in a room that really doesn't give you the kind of cards that you want. There are even some rooms that don't give you any cards, but you still want to be there because you're setting up some actions. You want to be in a certain position to go and complete a big room that will give you a lot of points next turn. But usually you will want to use the actions of the room. Here, just to give you some example, reveal 3 cards, choose 2 to keep. That gives you even more flexibility. This one is a fun one. It doesn't give you cards, but you move the room and everybody in it to any explored door. The mystical elevator moves around, and it can be quite fun when you're moving people that don't want to be moved. Discard a diamond dust and name 2 gems. Dig for a card with both named gems. Of course, dig means look for. Draw 3 cards, discard down to 3 cards in your hand. Great flexibility there. Draw 2 cards, not great, but hey, I've seen worse. Dig for 2 cards that have these 2 symbols, either or both even. This is the dreaded void that doesn't let you do anything. Reveal 5 cards, keep those with those 2 symbols there. This one we confidentially call the fork, just because of the 3 little spikes it has. Discard an obsidian to reveal 5 cards. I'm giving a lot of these examples because this is really what the game is about. The board will change dramatically from game to game, depending on the combination of actions, and this is literally what allows you to do things. That means that each game you will have different options open to you depending on which cards come out in which order. So this is the basic idea in both versions of the game. Discard down to 4 at the beginning of your turn, move around and possibly build rooms as part of your movement. Draw 1 card or take the action of the room you're in to get more cards or do different things. Your turn is over, goes to the next player. In the competitive mode, you continue like this until a player has collected 20 victory points. Then you make sure that every player has the same number of turns, and at that point the player with the highest total is the winner of the game. Most likely the player that collected 20 or more, but you never know. This is for the competitive mode. The cooperative. In the cooperative mode, at the end of each player's turn, the active player takes 2 cards from the draw deck and burns them. Well, not literally, don't be so literal. And discards them in a special discard pile. The regular discard pile, where you discard the cards that you used, will be reshuffled to form a new draw deck. The deck of burn cards, well, they're out of the game and they don't come back. The point here is that you will select a number of victory points so that you as a solitaire player or you and your friends as a team are trying to collect. If you're an apprentice, if you're playing the easy level, you're trying to collect 35 points. If you go an insane level, 50 points. So basically, since because of the burn mechanic, the deck will become smaller and smaller, there will be a time the time runs out. If time runs out, that is, your deck is exhausted before you reach the previous agreed on number of points, the player loses the game. If players can collect enough points to reach their target before the time runs out, they win the game. And this is how Gem Rush works. It's very simple, it's very basic, it's very linear. It feels a little bit like, I don't know, Tactical Splendor a little bit. But more chaotic. In Splendor, you can plan ahead because you see the type of sets that you want to combine, they want to form to be able to acquire certain cards. Here, which are the sets that will become valuable, and what are the actions that you will be performing to acquire those sets is completely unpredictable. So is Splendor for those that do not like planning too much, or again, that doesn't mean that you don't like, that you are a shallow player. It means that maybe you like a certain style of play, which is about dealing with randomness, dealing with chaos, reforming, reshaping your strategy every time, playing tactically. A new card is placed in a certain area that gives new possibilities. Also, the player that just built that block an exit, and you had to build a certain set because you wanted to play in that exit, and now you have to rethink your strategy entirely. You're in a certain area, and now the people have built around it, and now you have to move before you can perform something. So the sets, that is the goals you're trying to achieve, and the things that allow you to achieve them will change constantly. And as the game progresses, sure, this action will be available technically for the rest of the game. But and we don't know if that's the case, but if this card gets surrounded by a lot of other cards, no one will ever take that action anymore, because the open exits, that are the ones that you will be completing by building rooms, are far. So really, although all actions are available all game, technically, de facto, what happens is that the actions that are more profitable and that are really sensible are the ones on the outer edge or around the outer edge, and that will change again over time. I like it. I like it a lot. It's such a simple game. Again, in terms of complexity of the rules, my 7-year-old can play it. Probably even my 5-year-old could play it. I don't know if she would be able to really play in any way that makes sense, but let's say that the quality, the complexity of the rules is such that even a 5-year-old could understand it, as long as you read the rules for the 5-year-old. But a 7-year-old gets the game, gets the rules, gets the strategy. And actually, she's learning interesting lessons, because she sees a very big set. It's like, ooh, I'm gonna go for that set or that set. Yes, it takes a lot of gems to build, but hey, then it gives me 5 victory points. Problem is, while she's doing that, if you're playing competitively, mainly in the meanwhile, Dad has been building a bunch of 3 or 2 points rooms, which are not nearly as attractive individually, but of course in the aggregate they give an advantage. That is, my daughter, who is always going for the biggest sets, the biggest rewards, is learning flexibility, is learning that trade-off that you have, of course, between big targets and the opportunity cost that it takes you, that you're paying, that you are giving up to be able to reach those targets. Is it better to stick to one thing, or sometimes as opportunities emerge, to veer from there and pursue different strategies? I think that if you're playing with a young child, there are interesting lessons about strategy, or just even about being flexible that the child can learn. If you're a parent, first you spend a lot of time teaching your kids the rules, and then you spend a lot of time regretting that because they start using the rules inflexibly against you, and then you teach them flexibility and context, and when the rules apply and when they should be tweaked and when negotiated. There's a game that I think works in that way. I'm happy that we're playing that way, because actually right in these days we're talking about flexibility a lot with my daughter Amelia, 7-year-old. In general, if you're playing with adults, then it is a simple, light game. It's a filler. It's light, yes, in the sense that you don't have to elaborate a complex strategy, thinking too much ahead, also because you can't do that. There's just too much that goes on and changes all the time. But yet, although the changing circumstances are constant, it's a game that gives me enough to think about, enough to keep me engaged. I personally like the fact that the game feeds me constantly new problems to solve, or in any case to analyze. But that's not for everybody. Not everybody likes it equally. For example, I play with my wife, because my wife likes light games, and I thought there should be in the area of games that she may like in terms of complexity. And yes, she did like the complexity that was just about right for her. She even won the game that she played, but then she reported not liking it too much, because actually she likes to know a game very well, know what you can do and cannot do, and plan ahead, and then come to the table already with a strategy that then she may tweak and change. But the idea of building and rebuilding your strategy constantly during gameplay did not appeal to her. That is to say, this intensely tactical, constantly changing gameplay may not be for everybody. It is for me, and it is for my 7-year-old daughter. When we play with Mom, we'll play something else, but Gem Rush, created by Jeremy Leonard with the help of the Illuminati. It's fun. It's a fun little game. Not for everybody, but generally I think a good game, and definitely one that my daughter Amelia and I have been enjoying.